close your eyes and imagine standing alone beneath the vast Nevada sky. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction, painted in shades of copper and gold by the dying light of day. Above you, the first stars begin their ancient dance. And somewhere in that infinite darkness, questions wait, questions that have haunted humanity for decades. Tonight, we embark on a journey through shadows and secrets, through classified documents and whispered confessions. We'll walk the razor's edge between fact and fiction, between what governments tell us and what they desperately want to keep hidden. This is not just another story about lights in the sky. This is about something far more profound, the possibility that we are not alone, and that someone, somewhere, already knows it. Welcome to the secret story they don't want you to know. Chapter 1. The Desert That Hides More Than Sand. The Mojave Desert holds secrets like a vault holds gold, carefully, quietly, and with absolute determination. Here, in the seemingly empty expanse of southern Nevada, lies a patch of earth that doesn't officially exist on any public map. The locals call it Groom Lake. The military calls it a training facility. The world knows it by another name entirely, Area 51. But long before this place became synonymous with alien conspiracies and government cover-ups, it was simply a dry lake bed where the wind-carved patterns in the sand and jackrabbits sought shelter beneath Joshua trees. The transformation began in 1955, when the Central Intelligence Agency needed somewhere to test their most classified aircraft planes, so advanced and secretive that even glimpsing their silhouettes could compromise national security. Picture, if you will, the U-2 spy plane taking its maiden flight over this desolate landscape. Its wings stretched impossibly wide, catching thermals like a metallic condor, soaring at altitudes where the sky turns black and the curve of Earth becomes visible. To anyone watching from below, this craft would appear otherworldly, a silver disk, gliding silently through the heavens. And people were watching. Commercial airline pilots began reporting strange objects, moving at impossible speeds and altitudes. Air traffic controllers tracked radar signatures that defied conventional aircraft capabilities. Citizens looked up and saw things that shouldn't exist, performing maneuvers that seemed to mock the laws of physics. The military had a problem. How do you test revolutionary aircraft while maintaining absolute secrecy? How do you explain away sightings without revealing classified capabilities? The answer was as simple as it was brilliant. You don't explain anything at all. You let people draw their own conclusions. And if those conclusions happen to involve visitors from distant worlds rather than experimental military technology, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing for national security. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. Because while the government was perfectly content to let UFO enthusiasts chase fantasies in the desert, something else was happening, something that would transform this convenient cover story into something far more complex and unsettling. What if, in their efforts to hide advanced human technology, they accidentally stumbled upon evidence of technology that wasn't human at all? Chapter 2. The Birth of Secrecy. To understand the depth of secrecy surrounding Area 51, we must journey back to the paranoid heights of the Cold War, when America and the Soviet Union engaged in a deadly game of technological one-upmanship. Every advantage mattered. Every secret could tip the balance of power. In 1947, the same year that witnessed the alleged Roswell incident, the National Security Act created the CIA and fundamentally changed how America guarded its secrets. Suddenly, information became compartmentalized into levels of classification that created invisible walls even within the intelligence community itself. Projects were buried within projects, hidden behind code names and need-to-know restrictions that ensured only a handful of individuals ever glimpsed the complete picture. Enter Kelly Johnson, the legendary aircraft designer whose Lockheed Skunk works would birth some of the most extraordinary flying machines ever conceived. Johnson understood that true innovation required absolute secrecy. His team didn't just design aircraft. They created myths, legends, and carefully crafted disinformation campaigns. The SR-71 Blackbird, capable of flying at over 2,000 miles per hour at altitudes exceeding 85,000 feet, remained officially non-existent for years while regularly appearing on radar screens across the globe. Test pilots would take these black-winged phantoms on practice runs, leaving behind a trail of UFO reports from confused observers who couldn't reconcile what they were seeing with what they knew about conventional aircraft. But the Skunk Works didn't just build planes. They built plausible deniability. Consider the testimony of former Area 51 employees who have come forward in recent years. These men speak of underground facilities extending deep into the Nevada bedrock, of hangars large enough to house aircraft with wingspans exceeding anything in the public record, of transport planes arriving under cover of darkness with cargo that never appeared on any manifest. One former security guard, speaking anonymously to researchers, described trucks arriving at the facility in the early morning hours, their contents hidden beneath heavy tarps. The protocol was simple: ask no questions, see nothing, remember nothing. Violations of this code didn't result in termination. They resulted in transfer to positions where speaking up would be impossible. Yet despite these layers of secrecy, stories leaked out. Whispers spread through the tight-knit community of military contractors and government employees. Tales of recovered debris that exhibited properties unknown to terrestrial science. Accounts of material analysis conducted in laboratories that officially didn't exist. And then there were the witnesses, military personnel, scientists and technicians who claimed to have worked not just on advanced human technology, but on something else entirely. Something that had been recovered, studied, and reverse-engineered in the hidden depths of America's most secret facility. Were these accounts the product of fevered imaginations, elaborate disinformation campaigns, or something far more extraordinary? The answers, like everything else about this desert facility, remain locked away behind walls of classification that may never come down. Chapter 3: The Skies That Whisper There. Summer of 1952 brought something unprecedented to the skies over Washington, D.C. on 2 consecutive weekends. Radar operators at National Airport tracked multiple unidentified objects moving through restricted airspace at speeds and in patterns that defied explanation. The objects appeared on multiple independent radar systems, were witnessed by experienced air traffic controllers, and prompted the scrambling of military interceptors. This was not some isolated sighting by excitable civilians. This was a coordinated intrusion into the most protected airspace in America, witnessed and documented by trained professionals using the most advanced detection equipment available. The official response was swift and decisive. Within days, the Air Force convened the largest press conference since World War II. Major General John Samford faced a room packed with reporters and delivered what would become the template for decades of official denials. The objects were temperature inversions, unusual atmospheric conditions that could create false radar returns and visual illusions. Case closed. Mystery solved. Move along. But the radar operators weren't convinced. The pilots who scrambled to intercept these objects weren't satisfied. And deep within the bowels of the Pentagon, Project Blue Book was quietly documenting thousands of similar incidents that couldn't be explained away quite so easily. Edward Rupp, the first director of Project Blue Book, would later write that the Washington incidents represented a turning point. The government realized that the UFO phenomenon, whether explainable or not, had become a national security issue simply because of the public attention it generated. The solution wasn't to investigate more thoroughly, was to investigate more quietly. Enter the Robertson Panel of 1953, a carefully selected group of scientists and intelligence officials tasked with determining how the government should handle UFO reports. Their conclusions, buried in classified documents for decades, recommended a policy of official debunking and public ridicule. UFO witnesses should be discredited, reports should be explained away regardless of the evidence, and the entire phenomenon should be marginalized in the public consciousness. This raises a haunting question that echoes through every subsequent UFO incident. If these objects truly posed no threat and represented nothing more than misidentified conventional phenomena, why the elaborate campaign to discredit witnesses and suppress evidence? The answer may lie not in what the government was hiding, but in what it was desperately trying to understand. Because while Project Blue Book was publicly dismissing UFO reports as swamp gas and weather balloons, another program was operating in the shadows, one that took the phenomenon very seriously indeed. Chapter 4: The Hidden Network. Beneath the surface of official denial, a different story was unfolding. While the public face of UFO investigation was represented by the often ridiculed Project Blue Book, serious research was being conducted by groups with names that few Americans would recognize: the Aerospace Technical Intelligence Center, the Foreign Technology Division, and most mysteriously, a collection of private contractors whose work remained completely classified. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer who served as Project Blue Book's scientific consultant, would later reveal his growing frustration with the program's mandate to explain away rather than genuinely investigate. In private correspondence that surfaced decades later, Hynek wrote of pressure from his superiors to provide conventional explanations for incidents that clearly defied conventional understanding. But Hynek wasn't the only scientist struggling with this contradiction. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests have revealed a network of researchers, many with top-secret clearances, who were quietly studying the UFO phenomenon with resources and access that far exceeded anything available to public investigators. Dr. James McDonald, an atmospheric physicist at the University of Arizona, spent years pursuing UFO cases with scientific rigor. His research led him to conclude that the phenomenon represented the greatest scientific problem of our time. But McDonald's work was repeatedly undermined by mysterious funding cuts, security clearance issues, and what he described as a coordinated campaign to discredit his research. Consider the case of Dr. Paul Bennett, an electronics entrepreneur who lived near Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. Using sophisticated radio equipment, Benowitz began intercepting unusual transmissions and documenting strange lights over the base. His reports attracted the attention of Air Force intelligence, who began feeding him a mixture of genuine information and elaborate disinformation. What Benowitz didn't realize was that he had stumbled upon legitimate classified activities, but not the kind he was expecting. Instead of alien technology, he had apparently detected tests of advanced military systems, possibly including early stealth aircraft and electronic warfare capabilities. The disinformation campaign that followed was so sophisticated and so psychologically devastating that Ben eventually suffered a complete mental breakdown. He had become the victim of what intelligence professionals call perception management, the art of controlling what someone believes by carefully controlling what they think they're discovering. But here's the disturbing implication. If the government was willing to destroy a man's mind to protect conventional military secrets, what lengths might they go to in order to conceal something truly extraordinary? The answer may be found in the testimonies of individuals who claim to have worked on projects so classified that acknowledging their existence could constitute treason. These whistleblowers speak of technology that operates on principles unknown to mainstream science, of materials that exhibit properties that shouldn't be possible, and of recovered artifacts that appear to be of non-human origin. Are these accounts the products of elaborate psychological operations designed to muddy the waters around legitimate classified research? Or do they represent glimpses into humanity's most closely guarded secret? The truth may be more complex and more disturbing than either explanation suggests. Chapter 5, Element 115, Mystery. In 1989, a man named Robert Lazar appeared on Las Vegas television with a story so extraordinary that it would either mark him as the most important whistleblower in human history, or as one of the most elaborate hoaxers ever to face a camera. Lazar claimed to have worked at a facility called S4, located south of Area 51, where he was tasked with reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. The craft he described defied everything known about conventional propulsion. They generated their own gravitational fields, could accelerate without exerting GI forces on their occupants, and were powered by an element that wouldn't be officially discovered until 2003, 14 years after. Lazar first spoke about it publicly. Element 115, which Lazar called unempentium, was supposedly stable in its isotope form and capable of producing anti-gravitational effects when properly manipulated. Mainstream science scoffed at such claims. Elements with atomic numbers above 103 were known to be highly unstable, decaying within fractions of seconds. The idea of a stable isotope of element 115 was considered scientific fantasy. Then, in 2003, element 115 was successfully created in particle accelerators, while the synthesized versions were indeed unstable. The very existence of the element lent an eerie credibility to Lazar's claims. If he was fabricating his story, how had he accurately predicted the discovery of an element that wouldn't exist for over a decade? Lazar's descriptions of the propulsion systems he allegedly worked on were equally specific. He spoke of gravity wave amplifiers, Omicron radiation, and a method of space-time distortion that would allow spacecraft to travel vast distances without technically exceeding the speed of light. These concepts, while exotic, align surprisingly well with theoretical physics papers published years after Lazar's initial testimony. But the most unsettling aspect of Lazar's account wasn't the technology he described, it was his description of the beings who allegedly created it. According to Lazar, he was shown briefing documents that described the entities as the Grace beings, approximately 4 feet in height, with oversized heads and large dark eyes. The documents allegedly traced human evolutionary development as having been guided or manipulated by these entities over thousands of years. suggesting that what we consider natural human evolution may have been anything but natural. Skeptics have identified numerous inconsistencies in Lazar's story. His educational credentials have been questioned. His personal history contains gaps and contradictions, and some of his technical descriptions contain errors that suggest a less than complete understanding of the physics he claims to have worked with. Yet Lazar has never wavered from his core claims. Despite decades of scrutiny and ridicule, he has never attempted to profit significantly from his story, turning down lucrative opportunities to elaborate on his experiences. And perhaps most tellingly, his descriptions of security procedures at Area 51 have been corroborated by other former employees who worked at the facility during the same time period. The mystery deepens when we consider other whistleblowers who have come forward with similar claims. Philip Corso, a former Army intelligence officer, claimed to have personally handled debris from the Roswell incident and to have been involved in seeding recovered technology into American industry. Dan Burish, a microbiologist, alleged that he worked on classified projects involving both extraterrestrial technology and living extraterrestrial biological entities. Are all of these individuals victims of elaborate disinformation campaigns? Are they participants in a coordinated hoax? Or could they be telling the truth about humanity's most profound secret? The answer may lie in examining not just what they claim to have seen, but what physical evidence might support such extraordinary assertions. Chapter 6: The Materials That Shouldn't Exist, 1996. A materials scientist named Dr. Russell Vernon Clark received an unusual package through an intermediary. Inside were several pieces of metallic debris that the sender claimed had been recovered from a crash site in the American Southwest. The materials were unlike anything Vernon Clark had encountered in 30 years of metallurgical research. Under electron microscope analysis, the fragments revealed a complex layered structure consisting of alternating layers of magnesium and zinc, but with isotopic ratios that don't occur naturally on Earth. The layers were incredibly thin, only a few atoms thickened were bonded in ways that current manufacturing techniques couldn't replicate. What made these materials even more intriguing were their physical properties. Despite being incredibly lightweight, they exhibited unusual electromagnetic characteristics when subjected to specific radio frequencies. The materials would demonstrate anti-gravitational effects, actually becoming lighter in a measurable way. Vernon Clark wasn't the only scientist to examine unusual materials with alleged extraterrestrial origins. Dr. Gary Nolan, a professor of immunology at Stanford University, has spent years analyzing metallic fragments brought to him by military and intelligence personnel. Some of these materials exhibit metamaterial properties, engineered structures that can manipulate electromagnetic waves in ways that don't occur in natural materials. The implications are staggering. If these materials are genuine artifacts from crashed non-human technology, they represent scientific knowledge that exceeds our current understanding by decades or perhaps centuries. The layered construction techniques, the exotic isotope ratios, and the metamaterial properties all suggest manufacturing capabilities that humanity has not yet achieved. But here's where the mystery becomes even more complex. Some researchers believe that certain advanced materials exhibiting similar properties have quietly entered the commercial sector through defense contractors and aerospace companies. Technologies that were allegedly reverse-engineered from recovered artifacts may already be influencing human technological development in ways we don't recognize. Dr. Hal put a physicist who has worked on classified programs for various government agencies, has spoken publicly about the potential for legacy technology, advanced systems, whose origins have been deliberately obscured or forgotten over time. According to Puthoff, some of our most significant technological breakthroughs may have been achieved not through conventional research and development, but through analysis of recovered non-human technology. Consider the rapid advancement of semiconductor technology, fiber optics, and computer miniaturization that occurred in the decades following the Roswell incident. While conventional history attributes these breakthroughs to human ingenuity and research, some investigators wonder whether certain leaps in understanding came from studying technology that was already thousands of years ahead of our own development. The transistor, invented at Bell Labs in 1947, revolutionized electronics and paved the way for the computer age. Integrated circuits, laser technology, and even certain aspects of night vision equipment all emerged during the same general time period. That alleged extraterrestrial craft was supposedly being studied at Area 51 and other classified facilities. Correlation, of course, is not causation, but the timing raises questions that mainstream science has been reluctant to address. Perhaps most unsettling of all are the accounts of individuals who claim to have worked directly with these materials under government contracts. They describe analysis techniques that were strictly compartmentalized, with each researcher working on only a small piece of a much larger puzzle. No single individual was allowed to see the complete picture, ensuring that even if security was compromised, the full scope of the research would remain protected. But what if the real secret isn't just the existence of advanced materials? What if it's the source of those materials, and what their existence implies about humanity's place in the universe? Chapter 7. Alleged Alien Remains. In the summer of 1947, Major Jesse Marcel of the 509th Composite Group made a statement that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Standing before photographers in General Roger Remy's office, Marcel posed with debris that he knew wasn't what the press was being told it was. The official story was that he had mistakenly identified the remains of a weather balloon as something more exotic. But decades later, Marcel would confess that he had been ordered to pose with substitute materials while the real debris was shipped to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. 4. Analysis. What Marcel had actually found scattered across the New Mexico desert defied conventional explanation. The metallic fragments were incredibly lightweight but impossibly strong. When crumpled, the material would return to its original shape without any creases or damage. Some pieces bore symbols or markings that resembled hieroglyphics but didn't match any known language or writing system. But according to several witnesses, the debris wasn't the most shocking discovery made in the desert that day. Multiple sources have claimed that biological remains were also recovered, remains that were decidedly non-human. Glenn Dennis, a mortician in Roswell at the time, reported receiving unusual calls from the local military base requesting hermetically sealed coffins and information about preserving bodies that had been exposed to the elements. When Dennis attempted to deliver supplies to the base hospital, he claimed to have encountered a scene of intense medical activity involving remains that a nurse described as not human. The nurse, whom Dennis identified only as Naomi, allegedly sketched the beings she had observed during the medical examination. According to Dennis, these sketches depicted small humanoid figures with oversized heads, large eye sockets, and unusual body proportions. Dennis claimed that Naomi was soon transferred to England and died in a training accident. Shortly afterward, though no records of such a nurse have ever been located, more disturbing are the accounts of military personnel who claimed to have been involved in the recovery operation itself. Sergeant Melvin Brown told his family that he had been assigned to guard a truck containing several body bags during transport from the crash site. According to Brown, curiosity got the better of him, and he lifted the corner of one bag to peer inside. What he saw, Brown later told his children, was a small humanoid figure with greyish skin and an oversized head. The being was clearly dead, but its features were unlike anything he had ever encountered. Brown took this secret to his grave, only sharing the details with his family near the end of his life. But Roswell wasn't the only alleged recovery of non-human remains. Sergeant Clifford Stone, who claims to have participated in multiple crash retrieval operations during his military career, has spoken of encounters with several different types of entities. According to Stone, his security clearance gave him access to information about 57 different extraterrestrial species that have allegedly been catalogued by military intelligence. Stone's accounts are supported by other whistleblowers who describe a vast biological research program conducted in underground facilities at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and other classified installations. These programs allegedly involved not just the study of recovered remains, but attempts to understand the biology and physiology of non-human intelligences. Dr. Christopher Green, a former CIA analyst and forensic physician, has spoken cautiously about his knowledge of biological materials of unknown origin that have been studied by government agencies, while Green stops short of confirming extraterrestrial origins. He acknowledges that certain specimens exhibit characteristics that don't align with any known terrestrial life forms. The implications of such research, if genuine, are staggering. We're not just talking about advanced technology, we're talking about the study of alien biology, the potential for understanding completely different evolutionary paths, and the possibility that intelligence itself may take forms we can barely comprehend. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of these accounts isn't what they reveal about extraterrestrial beings, it's what they suggest about the lengths to which human beings will go to keep such discoveries secret. Because if these remains are real, if they're being studied in hidden laboratories by scientists bound by oaths of secrecy, then we must ask ourselves, what else might they have discovered? And why is that knowledge being withheld from the rest of humanity? Chapter 8. The Whistleblowers Speak. Called November 12, 2007. Something unprecedented happened at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. 14 former military officers, government officials, and aerospace employees gathered before an audience of journalists to make statements that would normally be dismissed as fantasy if not for the impeccable credentials of those making them. Captain Robert Salas, former U.S. Air Force officer responsible for nuclear weapons, described an incident at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967, where multiple nuclear missiles were mysteriously disabled after unknown objects were observed hovering over the facility. Colonel Charles Holt, Deputy Base Commander of RAF Bedtime, provided detailed testimony about encounters with structured craft exhibiting capabilities beyond any known technology. These weren't conspiracy theorists or attention seekers. These were career military professionals, many with decades of service and top-secret clearances, risking their reputations and pensions to share experiences that they felt the American people deserved to know. About. Major George Filer III, former intelligence officer with over 20 years of service, described multiple encounters with unidentified aircraft during his military career, including incidents where conventional interceptors were scrambled to pursue objects that demonstrated impossible flight characteristics. According to Filer, these encounters were meticulously documented, but the reports were classified and buried within military intelligence channels. What makes these testimonies particularly compelling is their consistency across different time periods, locations, and military branches. The objects described by these witnesses share common characteristics: silent operation, instantaneous acceleration, right-angle turns at impossible speeds, and the ability to hover motionless for extended periods before vanishing without a trace. Captain Salaz's account of the Malmstrom incident is particularly disturbing because it involves nuclear weapons, humanity's most destructive technology. According to Salaz, a glowing red object approximately 30 feet in diameter appeared over the facility and somehow caused multiple Minuteman missiles to go offline. The missiles weren't just temporarily disabled, their guidance systems were completely reset, requiring extensive maintenance to restore them to operational status. The implications are staggering. If an unknown intelligence could disable America's nuclear deterrent at will, the entire foundation of Cold War strategy was built on false assumptions. More disturbing still, similar incidents were allegedly reported at nuclear facilities belonging to other nations, suggesting that whoever or whatever was responsible for these intrusions was monitoring and potentially controlling humanity's most dangerous weapons. Dr. Robert Wood, former aerospace engineer at McDonnell Douglas, has spent years analyzing documents that he believes prove government knowledge of extraterrestrial visitation. Many of these documents, obtained through various channels, bear the hallmarks of authentic government communications but contain information that would revolutionize our understanding of humanity's place in the universe if they're genuine. Wood's analysis focuses particularly on what he calls leaked authentic documents, papers that appear to have been deliberately released by insiders who felt the information was too important to remain classified. These documents describe crash retrievals, technology analysis programs, and even alleged diplomatic contact with non-human intelligences. But perhaps the most significant whistleblower to emerge in recent years is Luis Elizondo, former director of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Elizondo's 2017 resignation letter, which was released to the media, contained language that was both carefully worded and remarkably direct. The program had identified aircraft displaying capabilities that exceeded known human technology by decades or centuries. Elizondo's revelations were accompanied by the release of 3 videos showing encounters between military aircraft and unidentified objects. The Tic Tac, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos, authenticated by the Pentagon, show craft performing maneuvers that appear to violate the laws of physics as we understand them. What makes Elizondo's testimony particularly credible is his reluctance to speculate about the origins of these craft. As a career intelligence professional, he focuses on capabilities and threats rather than exotic explanations. Yet even his conservative analysis leads to unsettling conclusions. Unknown intelligences are operating advanced aircraft in our airspace with impunity, and our most sophisticated military technology cannot match their performance. The question that haunts every whistleblower account is simple. If these individuals are telling the truth, Why hasn't this information been officially acknowledged? The answer may lie not in what the government knows, but in what it fears the public might do with that knowledge. Chapter 9: Underground Secrets Beneath the Nevada Desert. Far from the prying eyes of satellites and curious civilians lies a network of tunnels and facilities that officially don't exist. The surface installations of Area 51 are merely the visible tip of an iceberg that extends deep into the earth, connected by underground railways and elevator systems that can transport personnel and materials without ever exposing them to surface. Observation: former employees, speaking under conditions of anonymity, describe underground levels that descend hundreds of feet into the bedrock. These subterranean facilities are equipped with their own power generation systems, air filtration networks, and communication arrays that operate independently of surface infrastructure. In the event of a national emergency, these underground installations could function as completely self-contained cities. Bob Lazar's descriptions of the S4 facility south of Area 51 focused heavily on its underground nature. According to Lazar, the hangar bays where he allegedly worked on recovered craft were built directly into the mountainside, their doors camouflaged to blend seamlessly with the natural rock face. Aircraft could be moved in and out of these facilities without ever being visible from the air or from ground level. But Lazar's accounts go beyond simple descriptions of hidden hangars. He speaks of multiple underground levels, each with different security clearances and access restrictions. Lower levels, according to Lazar, housed not just technology but biological specimens and even living entities of non-human origin. The engineering challenges of creating such facilities would be immense, requiring specialized construction techniques and enormous financial resources. Yet former construction workers have come forward claiming to have built exactly these kinds of underground installations, often without knowing the ultimate purpose of their work. One anonymous contractor described working on what he was told was a mining operation in the Nevada desert during the 1980s. The mining involved excavating vast chambers connected by precisely engineered tunnels, all equipped with advanced ventilation and electrical systems. Only later did he realize that the facility's design had nothing to do with mineral extraction and everything to do with concealment. The logistics of operating such facilities are staggering. Personnel must be transported to and from work sites without leaving traces that could be detected by foreign intelligence services. Supplies must be delivered, waste must be removed, and security must be maintained, all while ensuring that the underground installations remain completely invisible to the outside world. This is allegedly accomplished through a network of unmarked aircraft that operate from hidden airfields scattered throughout the Nevada test range. These flights, known to aviation enthusiasts as Janet Airlines, transport workers to classified facilities using aircraft whose tail numbers are frequently changed to prevent tracking. But the most disturbing accounts of underground activities don't come from former employees. They come from individuals claiming to have been held in these facilities against their will. These alleged abductees describe being taken to underground locations where they encountered not just human personnel, but non-human entities working alongside military and scientific staff. Phil Schneider, a former government contractor who claimed to have worked on underground base construction projects, went public with allegations that these facilities were jointly operated by human and non-human intelligences. According to Schneider, an entire shadow government was operating beneath the surface, conducting research and development programs that would fundamentally alter the course of human civilization. Schneider's claims were so extraordinary that they would normally be dismissed without consideration except for his detailed knowledge of underground construction techniques, his apparent familiarity with classified projects, and his mysterious death shortly after going public with his allegations. The pattern of whistleblower deaths and disappearances is one of the most unsettling aspects of the entire UFO cover-up phenomenon. Individuals who claim knowledge of deeply classified programs have a disturbing tendency to die under suspicious circumstances or simply vanish without a trace. Is this evidence of a coordinated campaign to silence those who possess dangerous knowledge? Or is it simply the inevitable result of unstable individuals making false claims about classified activities? The answer may lie in examining not just what these individuals claimed to know, but what their disappearances might be designed to prevent others from discovering. Because if there truly are underground facilities conducting research on non-human technology and biology, then the implications extend far beyond mere government secrecy. We may be looking at evidence of the most significant cover-up in human history, one that involves not just the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence, but active collaboration between human and non-human entities. Chapter 10: The Technology Transfer. In 1961, Jack Kilby of Texas Instruments was awarded the Nobel Prize for his invention of the integrated circuit, a breakthrough that would revolutionize electronics and pave the way for the computer age. The official story credits Kilby's innovation to human ingenuity and systematic research. But according to Colonel Philip Corso, a former Army intelligence officer, the reality was far more complex and unsettling. In his controversial book, The Day After Roswell, Corso claimed that he was personally responsible for seeding recovered extraterrestrial technology into American industry through military research contracts. The integrated circuit, according to Corso, was reverse-engineered from components found in the debris recovered from the 1947 Roswell incident. Corso's allegations weren't limited to computer technology. He claimed that fiber optic cables, laser weapon systems, night vision equipment, and even certain aspects of particle beam technology all originated from the analysis of recovered alien artifacts. If true, this would mean that some of humanity's most significant technological advances were not the product of human discovery, but rather the result of studying technology created by non-human intelligences. The timeline Corso describes is particularly intriguing. The Roswell incident occurred in July 1947. The transistor was invented at Bell Labs in December 1947. Integrated circuits emerged in the late 1950s. Fiber optic technology was developed in the 1960s. Each of these breakthroughs represented quantum leaps in understanding that built upon the previous discovery, but Corso wasn't the only individual to make such claims. Dr. Hermann Ober, one of the founding fathers of modern rocketry and Werner von Braun's mentor, made a statement in 1954 that raised eyebrows throughout the scientific community. We cannot take the credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped by the people of other worlds. Oberth's comment was largely ignored by mainstream media, dismissed as the eccentric musings of an aging scientist, but viewed in the context of other testimonies, his words take on a more ominous significance. Consider the rapid advancement of aerospace technology in the decades following World War II. The leap from crude V to rockets to sophisticated spacecraft capable of lunar missions occurred in less than 25 years, a pace of development that some historians find difficult to explain through conventional research and development alone. Ben Rich, former director of Lockheed Skunk Works, made several cryptic statements near the end of his career that suggested the aerospace industry possessed capabilities far beyond what was publicly acknowledged. Rich famously told a UCLA audience in 1993, "We already have the means to travel among the stars. But these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. The implications of technology transfer from non-human sources extend beyond individual innovations. If Corso and others are correct, then entire industries may have been shaped by reverse-engineered alien technology, creating a hidden foundation beneath the modern technological world. This raises profound questions about intellectual property, scientific advancement, and humanity's technological heritage. Are we giving ourselves credit for discoveries that were actually made by non-human intelligences thousands of years ago? And, if so, what other technologies might be waiting in classified vaults, withheld from public knowledge for reasons of national security or something else entirely? The secrecy surrounding alleged technology transfer programs also suggests a disturbing possibility that a select group of individuals and organizations may possess scientific knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization, but are choosing to keep that knowledge hidden for their own purposes. If clean energy technology, advanced propulsion systems, and revolutionary medical treatments have all been developed through the study of recovered alien artifacts, then the current state of global poverty, environmental degradation, and disease might be entirely unnecessarily maintained, only to preserve existing power structures. But perhaps the most unsettling implication of the technology transfer theory isn't what it reveals about extraterrestrial intelligence, it's what it suggests about human nature and our willingness to hoard knowledge that could benefit all of humanity. Chapter 11. The Communication Attempts in August 15, 1977. Dr. Jerry Eman was analyzing radio telescope data at Ohio State University when he discovered something that would challenge everything we thought we knew about our cosmic solitude. Among the endless streams of cosmic background noise, a powerful signal stood out like a beacon, 72 seconds of structured radio waves, emanating from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal was so remarkable that Eman circled it on the computer printout and wrote "Wow" in the margin, giving the discovery its enduring nickname. The "Wow" signal appeared to originate from a specific point in space and exhibited characteristics that suggested artificial origin, but it was never detected again, despite decades of careful monitoring. But the "Wow" signal wasn't humanity's first potential contact with non-human intelligence. For decades, radio astronomers and amateur operators had been detecting structured signals that seemed to defy natural explanation. Some appeared to be responses to transmissions from Earth. Others seemed to be attempting communication using mathematical concepts that would be universal to any technological civilization. In 1974, scientists at the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico transmitted a carefully crafted message toward the globular cluster M13, located 25,000 light-years from Earth. The message, encoded in binary mathematics, contained basic information about human civilization, our number system, the elements that compose our bodies, the structure of DNA, and a crude image of a human figure 20-7 years later. something extraordinary appeared in a wheat field adjacent to the Chilbolton radio telescope in England. The formation, when viewed from the air, bore an unmistakable resemblance to the Arecibo message, but with crucial differences. The reply seemed to come from beings who were smaller than humans, had different DNA structure, and populated a different solar system configuration. The Chilbolton formation was followed by other crop circles that appeared to contain mathematical information, astronomical data, and even what looked like ASCII-encoded messages warning about deception and false promises. Skeptics dismissed these formations as elaborate hoaxes, but the precision of the mathematical content and the sophistication of the information encoded within them suggested knowledge that would be difficult for human hoaxers to possess. Dr. Horace Drew, a molecular biologist who has studied crop circle formations for decades, believes that some of these patterns represent genuine attempts at communication by non-human intelligences. According to Drew, the mathematical concepts embedded in certain formations demonstrate understanding of advanced physics and astronomy that would be challenging for even highly educated humans to encode. Accurately, the formations appear to follow a progression of increasing complexity, as if the intelligence behind them is gradually introducing more sophisticated concepts. Early circles were simple geometric patterns. Later formations incorporated fractals, astronomical calculations, and even representations of theoretical physics concepts that wouldn't be fully understood by human science until years after the formations appeared. But crop circles aren't the only alleged communication attempts. Radio astronomers report receiving structured signals from space that appear to be artificial in origin but don't match any known natural phenomena. These signals often exhibit characteristics that suggest they're intentionally designed to attract attention. They're loud, they're structured, and they often occur at frequencies that would propagate efficiently through interstellar space. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, Sightings Institute, officially focuses on detecting radio signals from distant civilizations, but their public reports rarely mention the numerous candidate signals that have been detected over the decades. Most are eventually explained as interference from human technology or natural cosmic phenomena, but a small percentage remain unexplained. Dr. John Krause, designer of the famous Big Ear radio telescope that detected the WOW signal, spent years following up on unusual signals that didn't fit conventional explanations. According to colleagues, Krause became convinced that some of these signals represented genuine attempts at communication, but he was discouraged from publicizing his findings by institutional pressure and funding concerns. The pattern of suppressing evidence of potential extraterrestrial communication extends beyond academic institutions. Military installations routinely monitor radio frequencies for intelligence purposes, and it's reasonable to assume that they would detect any structured signals from non-human sources long before civilian researchers. If such communications are being received and analyzed by military intelligence agencies, the implications are staggering. We might not be alone in the universe, and someone with the highest levels of security clearance might already know it. The question becomes not whether we've received messages from extraterrestrial intelligences, but whether those messages are being kept secret, and if so, why. Chapter 12. The global network. The phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects isn't limited to American airspace. Reports of structured craft exhibiting extraordinary capabilities have emerged from every continent, suggesting that if these objects represent non-human technology, Their operators are conducting global operations with apparent impunity. In 1990, Belgian Air Force F-16 fighters were scrambled to intercept triangular objects tracked on multiple radar systems over populated areas. The objects demonstrated capabilities that exceeded any known aircraft, accelerating from hovering to supersonic speeds in seconds, while making turns that should have been aerodynamically impossible. The Belgian incidents were remarkable not just for what was observed, but for the official response. Unlike their American counterparts, Belgian military officials were surprisingly forthcoming about the encounters, releasing radar data and pilot testimony that confirmed the presence of structured objects exhibiting non-conventional flight characteristics. Colonel Wilfried de Brouwer, Chief of Operations for the Belgian Air Force, went on record stating that the objects displayed capabilities that we could not explain with our current knowledge of aerodynamics. The Belgian government's openness about these incidents stands in stark contrast to the secrecy that typically surrounds such events in other countries. Similar incidents have been documented by military forces around the world. In 1986, Japan Airlines Flight 1628 encountered enormous objects over Alaska that were visible to both radar and crew members. The objects paced the commercial airliner for over 400 miles, displaying structured forms that pilot Captain Kenju Teruruchi described as being 2 times bigger than an aircraft carrier. The incident was investigated by the Federal Aviation Administration, which concluded that the radar returns were genuine but offered no explanation for what had caused them. Captain Teruruchi was subsequently removed from international flights, allegedly because his reports had become an embarrassment to Japan Airlines. In France, a government commission known as GIPN, formerly SEPRA, has been officially investigating unidentified aerospace phenomena since 1977. Unlike American agencies, GIPN publishes its findings and has concluded that approximately 25% of reported incidents remain unexplained even after thorough investigation. The French approach to UFO investigation represents a middle ground between complete secrecy and full disclosure. Their reports acknowledge the reality of unexplained aerial phenomena while stopping short of speculating about extraterrestrial origins. This cautious transparency has allowed French researchers to accumulate decades of high-quality data without triggering the kind of ridicule that has historically plagued similar research in other countries. Brazil's official UFO investigation unit, created within the country's aerospace command, has released thousands of pages of documents describing encounters between military aircraft and unidentified objects. Brazilian authorities have acknowledged that these objects pose potential flight safety hazards and represent a genuine aerospace phenomenon worthy of scientific study. The contrast between Brazil's openness and American secrecy is particularly striking given that both countries are dealing with the same basic phenomenon. This suggests that the policy of extreme secrecy surrounding UFO incidents may be more of an American choice than a global necessity. Perhaps most significantly, former government officials from multiple countries have coordinated efforts to encourage greater transparency about UFO-related information. The citizens' hearing on disclosure, held at the National Press Club in 2013, brought together former military and government personnel from the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and other nations to testify about their experiences with unexplained aerial phenomena. These witnesses described a pattern of information sharing between Allied intelligence services regarding UFO incidents, suggesting that the phenomenon is being tracked and analyzed on an international scale. If true, this would mean that whatever intelligence is behind these objects is known to multiple world governments, and that those governments have coordinated their responses to maintain secrecy. The implications are staggering. If allied nations are sharing information about extraterrestrial contact while simultaneously maintaining public denial, then we may be looking at one of the most successful international conspiracies in human history. But why would multiple sovereign nations agree to maintain secrecy about something so fundamentally important? What could possibly justify hiding evidence of non-human intelligence from the world's population? The answer may be more disturbing than the secret itself. Chapter 13. The Psychological Operation in 1979. A New Mexico businessman named Paul Benowitz began intercepting strange radio transmissions near Kirtland Air Force Base. Using sophisticated electronics equipment, Benowitz detected patterns of communication that seemed to indicate the presence of non-human intelligences operating in cooperation with the US military. What Benowitz didn't realize was that he had stumbled into the middle of a carefully orchestrated psychological operation designed to test the effectiveness of disinformation techniques on civilian researchers. Over the course of several years, Air Force intelligence officers fed Benowitz a mixture of genuine classified information and elaborate fabrications, gradually driving him into a state of paranoid breakdown. The Benowitz case represents one of the most disturbing aspects of the UFO cover-up: the deliberate use of psychological warfare techniques against American civilians. Intelligence agencies didn't simply deny the existence of unexplained phenomena. They actively manipulated researchers and witnesses to discredit the entire field of UFO investigation. Richard Doty, a former Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent, has admitted to his role in the Benowitz operation and similar disinformation campaigns. According to Doty, the goal wasn't just to protect legitimate classified activities, it was to create such confusion and paranoia within the UFO research community that the public would dismiss all claims of government secrecy as the products of delusional thinking. The techniques employed were sophisticated and psychologically devastating. Researchers would be approached by individuals claiming to possess inside knowledge, then fed information that was designed to lead them down rabbit holes of increasingly bizarre theories. The goal was to transform credible witnesses into apparent crackpots whose testimonies would be automatically dismissed by mainstream media and scientific institutions. Linda Moulton, an Emmy Award-winning investigative journalist, was one of many researchers targeted by these operations. In 1983, Howe was approached by Air Force personnel who showed her what they claimed were genuine government documents describing recovered alien technology and contact with extraterrestrial intelligences. The documents appeared authentic, complete with official letterheads and security classifications. They described crash retrievals, biological analysis of non-human entities, and even alleged diplomatic contact with several different extraterrestrial species. Howe was told that she would be given exclusive access to film and interview military personnel about these programs if she agreed to certain conditions. Those conditions, it turned out, included editorial control over her final documentary. The military wanted the right to review and modify any footage before it could be released to the public. When Howe refused to accept these restrictions, the promised access was withdrawn, and she was left with tantalizing glimpses of documents that may have been genuine or may have been elaborate forgeries designed to waste her time and discredit her research. The effectiveness of these psychological operations was demonstrated by their impact on the UFO research community. Researchers became suspicious of each other, accusing colleagues of being government agents or willing participants in disinformation campaigns. The field became fractured and paranoid, making it nearly impossible to coordinate serious scientific investigation of unexplained phenomena. Dr. Jacques Vallée, a computer scientist and longtime UFO researcher, has written extensively about the deliberate manipulation of UFO witnesses and researchers. According to Vallée, the intelligence community realized that they could control the UFO narrative more effectively through disinformation than through simple denial, by flooding the field with false witnesses, fabricated documents, and contradictory theories. Intelligence agencies could ensure that genuine evidence would be lost in a sea of noise. The public would be left unable to distinguish between credible reports and obvious fabrications, leading to general dismissal of the entire phenomenon. But perhaps the most sinister aspect of these operations was their use of advanced psychological profiling techniques to identify and manipulate vulnerable individuals. Researchers with personal problems, financial difficulties, or psychological instabilities were specifically targeted for disinformation campaigns that exploited their weaknesses. The long-term effects of these operations extend far beyond the UFO research community. They represent a systematic assault on the principle of informed democratic discourse, using taxpayer intelligence resources to manipulate American citizens and control public perception of important issues. If intelligence agencies are willing to conduct psychological operations against their own citizens to protect UFO-related secrets, what other subjects might be receiving similar treatment? And how can the public distinguish between genuine information and carefully crafted disinformation when the manipulation techniques have become so sophisticated? The answer may be that we can't, and that may be exactly what those conducting these operations intended. Chapter 14. The Modern Disclosure Movement, December 16, 2017. The New York Times published an article that would fundamentally change the public discourse around unidentified aerial phenomena, glowing auras, and black money. The Pentagon's mysterious UFO program revealed the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, a classified Pentagon initiative that had been studying unexplained aerial encounters for years. The revelation was accompanied by the release of 3 videos showing encounters between U.S. Navy aircraft and objects displaying flight characteristics that appeared to defy conventional physics. The tic-tac, gimbal, and go-fast videos were officially authenticated by the Pentagon, marking the first time in decades that the U.S. government had acknowledged the existence of genuinely unexplained aerial phenomena. Luis Elizondo, the former director of AATIP, emerged as the public face of what many began calling the disclosure movement. Unlike previous whistleblowers, who made extraordinary claims without official backing, Elizondo's credentials were impeccable and his statements were measured and professional. Rather than speculating about extraterrestrial origins, Elizondo focused on the national security implications of unknown aircraft operating in controlled airspace with capabilities that exceeded America's most advanced military technology. His approach was deliberately conservative, emphasizing the need for scientific study rather than promoting any particular explanation for the phenomena. The disclosure movement gained momentum when former Pentagon officials, NASA administrators, and intelligence officers began speaking publicly about their experiences with unexplained aerial phenomena. These individuals weren't conspiracy theorists or attention seekers. They were career professionals with decades of experience in aerospace and defense. Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, became another prominent voice in the movement. Mellon's Pentagon experience gave him unique insight into how the military bureaucracy had historically handled UFO reports, and his criticism of that handling was devastating. According to Mellon, the military's approach to unexplained aerial phenomena had been characterized by willful ignorance, institutional bias, and a failure to follow basic protocols for investigating potential threats to national security. Pilots and radar operators were discouraged from reporting encounters, and when reports were filed, they were often buried in bureaucratic channels where they would never receive serious analysis. The tide began to turn when military pilots themselves started speaking publicly about their encounters. Commander David Fravor, who piloted one of the FA-18 Super Hornets involved in the famous Tic Tac encounter, described an object that accelerated beyond the capabilities of any known aircraft and demonstrated awareness of his aircraft's movements. Lieutenant Ryan Graves, another Navy pilot, reported multiple encounters with unidentified objects during training exercises off the East Coast. According to Graves, these objects appeared on radar systems daily for months, operating in patterns that suggested they were actively monitoring military activities. What made these testimonies particularly credible was their consistency with classified military data. The pilots' accounts aligned perfectly with radar tracking information, infrared video recordings, and electronic warfare system data. This wasn't a case of isolated witnesses making unsupported claims. This was multiple sensor systems, corroborating extraordinary encounters. The Pentagon's response to these revelations was unprecedented. Rather than denying the encounters or dismissing the videos as hoaxes, military officials acknowledged that the phenomena were genuine and unexplained. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force was established to investigate these incidents, and Congress began demanding regular briefings on the program's findings. In June 2021, the Pentagon released its preliminary assessment on unidentified aerial phenomena to Congress. The report acknowledged 4 instances of encounters between military personnel and objects that couldn't be explained by known technology or natural phenomena. While the report stopped short of speculating about extraterrestrial origins, it acknowledged that some of these objects appeared to demonstrate breakthrough technologies. The modern disclosure movement represents a fundamental shift in how government institutions approach the UFO phenomenon. Rather than reflexive denial and ridicule, there's now official acknowledgement that unexplained aerial encounters represent a genuine national security concern worthy of scientific investigation, but questions remain about the scope and depth of government knowledge regarding these phenomena. The official reports focus primarily on recent encounters, saying little about historical incidents or any long-term programs that might have been studying these objects for decades. Critics of the disclosure movement argue that the recent admissions represent a limited hangout intelligence term for releasing some classified information in order to prevent the disclosure of more sensitive materials. They suggest that while the government is now acknowledging the reality of unexplained aerial phenomena, the full scope of official knowledge about these objects may still be hidden from public view. The truth may be more complex than either complete disclosure or continued cover-up. We may be witnessing a gradual process of revelation, carefully managed to avoid social disruption while slowly preparing the public for even more extraordinary revelations yet to come. Chapter 15. The implications of contact. If the testimonies, documents, and evidence we've explored throughout this journey represent even a partial glimpse of the truth, then humanity stands at the threshold of the most significant revelation in our species' history. The implications of confirmed contact with non-human intelligence extend far beyond the realm of science fiction, touching every aspect of human civilization, belief, and understanding. The technological implications alone are staggering. If craft capable of instantaneous acceleration, right-angled turns at impossible speeds, and apparent manipulation of gravitational fields are visiting our planet, then our understanding of physics is fundamentally incomplete. The discovery of such capabilities would revolutionize energy production, transportation, and our entire relationship with the physical universe. But the technological implications may be the least significant aspect of confirmed extraterrestrial contact. The psychological and sociological effects of such a revelation could transform human civilization in ways we can barely imagine. Religious institutions would face unprecedented challenges as humanity grappled with questions about our place in creation, the uniqueness of human consciousness, and the meaning of life itself. If we are not alone in the universe, if intelligence has evolved on countless worlds, then many of our most fundamental beliefs about human specialness and divine purpose would require re-examination. The economic implications would be equally profound. Industries built around scarcity energy, transportation, manufacturing could be revolutionized by access to advanced technologies. But such rapid change would also threaten existing power structures, potentially displacing entire economic systems and the individuals and organizations that profit from them. This may explain why, if extraterrestrial contact has occurred, it has been kept secret for so long. The revelation wouldn't just change human understanding. It could destabilize the entire global order that has been built around assumptions of terrestrial isolation and technological limitations. Dr. Stephen Greer, a former emergency room physician who became one of the most prominent advocates for UFO disclosure, has argued that the technology demonstrated by alleged extraterrestrial craft could solve humanity's most pressing problems: clean energy, efficient transportation, and advanced manufacturing capabilities could eliminate poverty, reduce environmental degradation, and create unprecedented prosperity. But Greer also argues that these same technologies represent an existential threat to existing energy, transportation, and military industries. If anti-gravitational propulsion systems could replace fossil fuels, if advanced materials could revolutionize manufacturing, then trillions of dollars in existing infrastructure and investments would become obsolete overnight. The geopolitical implications of confirmed extraterrestrial contact would be equally complex. If advanced non-human civilizations exist and have been interacting with Earth, then traditional concepts of national sovereignty, military defense, and international relations become largely meaningless. How would governments maintain authority and control over populations who knew that more advanced intelligences were available to provide guidance, technology, or alternative forms of social organization? The entire concept of nation-states might need to be reconsidered in the context of planetary membership in a galactic community. Perhaps most significantly, Confirmed contact would force humanity to confront fundamental questions about our future evolution and development. If other civilizations have successfully navigated the challenges that currently threaten human survival, environmental destruction, nuclear warfare, resource depletion, then we might have access to guidance that could ensure our species' long-term survival. But such guidance would come at the cost of human autonomy and self-determination. Would we be willing to accept direction from beings whose intelligence might exceed our own by thousands or millions of years? Or would we insist on maintaining our independence, even if it meant foregoing access to knowledge that could save our species? The philosophical implications of contact extend beyond practical concerns to questions about the nature of intelligence, consciousness, and purpose in the universe. If intelligence is common in the cosmos, if consciousness can evolve along multiple pathways, then our understanding of life itself would need to expand dramatically. We might discover that what we consider uniquely human characteristics, creativity, emotion, spiritual awareness are actually universal properties of sufficiently complex intelligence. Or we might find that human consciousness represents just one possible path among many, with other forms of awareness that we can barely comprehend. Dr. Carl Sagan, despite his skepticism about UFO reports, wrote eloquently about the transformative potential of confirmed extraterrestrial contact. According to Sagan, such contact would represent the most significant event in human history, forcing our species to mature beyond tribal thinking and embrace our role as members of a cosmic community. But Sagan also warned about the potential dangers of such contact, particularly if it occurred before humanity had resolved its own internal conflicts and achieved a more stable and peaceful civilization. Contact with advanced extraterrestrial intelligence could either accelerate human development toward a more enlightened future or expose our primitive instincts in ways that could lead to chaos and destruction. The question facing humanity may not be whether contact has occurred, but whether we are ready for the implications of that contact and what we will do with the knowledge if it is finally revealed. Epilogue: the secret story they don't want you to know. We began this journey in the Nevada desert, beneath stars that have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of worlds. We've traveled through decades of secrecy and revelation, through testimonies that challenge everything. We thought we knew about our place in the universe. The story we've uncovered, if it is indeed true, represents more than just evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. It reveals a systematic effort to control one of the most important questions humanity has ever faced. Are we alone? Every classified document, every whistleblower testimony, every piece of alleged alien technology points to the same disturbing conclusion, that the answer to this question may already be known by a select few, while the rest of humanity continues to wonder and wait. The secret story they don't want you to know isn't just about crashed spacecraft, underground facilities, or reverse-engineered technology. It's about the transformation of human consciousness that would inevitably follow the confirmation of non-human intelligence. It's about the end of humanity's cosmic childhood and the beginning of something far more complex and challenging. Perhaps the most profound aspect of this secret isn't what has been hidden, but why it has been hidden. If the testimonies we've examined represent even partial truth, then someone, somewhere, made the decision that humanity was not ready for the knowledge of extraterrestrial contact. Was this decision made out of concern for social stability, fear of religious upheaval, desire to maintain existing power structures, Or was it based on the nature of the contact itself, perhaps revealing truths about human origins, development, or future that were deemed too disturbing for public consumption? The modern disclosure movement suggests that this long period of secrecy may finally be coming to an end. Government acknowledgement of unexplained aerial phenomena, military testimony about encounters with superior technology, and gradual release of previously classified information all point toward a possible future where the full truth about extraterrestrial contact is finally revealed. But even if full disclosure occurs, the questions raised by decades of secrecy will remain. How many technological breakthroughs that could have benefited humanity were kept hidden for reasons of national security or corporate profit? How many individuals were silenced, discredited, or destroyed to maintain secrecy around the most important discovery in human history? The witnesses we've encountered: military officers, scientists, government officials, ordinary citizens, all share one common thread. They believed that the truth, whatever its implications, deserved to be known. They risked their careers, their reputations, and in some cases their lives to ensure that the story would eventually be told. Their courage reminds us that some secrets are too important to remain hidden forever, regardless of the consequences of revelation. The truth about extraterrestrial contact, if that is indeed what we're dealing with, belongs not to governments or corporations or secret organizations, but to humanity as a whole. As we conclude this journey into the shadows of official secrecy and the light of possible revelation, we return to where we began, beneath the vast Nevada sky, in the silence of the desert, surrounded by questions that may finally be ready for answers. The story they don't want you to know may be the story that defines our species' future. Whether that future involves contact with advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, access to revolutionary technologies, or simply the knowledge that we are not alone in the universe. One thing seems certain: the age of secrecy is ending, and the age of revelation may finally be at hand. The truth, as they say, is out there. But perhaps more importantly, the truth may finally be coming home. The question now is not whether we can handle the truth, but whether we are ready to act responsibly with the knowledge that comes with it. Because if we are not alone in the universe, then everything changes. Everything.